Blue Savannah is a map based on a combination of two lesser-known planets whose concepts have been combined, Brigia and Pashvi. Pashvi never appears directly, but it is instead mentioned in Outbound Flight, where it is described as a planet covered in thousands of rock pillars. The rock pillars are covered in lush vegetation, but are also home to a large deadly avian. For the locals, these rock pillars represent something both coveted and feared. Brigia directly appears in the Han Solo adventures, but gives absolutely no description of the landscape, though we know that the local government was poorly equipped, corrupt, and attempted to repress the growth of knowledge for its citizens. In Star Wars X-Wing, the planet appears in the background looking mostly blue. Arguably, it's just a normal Earth-like planet, or perhaps an oceanic planet, but I prefer the idea of it actually just being blue. Thus, I made a blue planet with rock pillars. Initially, I had planned on making the planet a desert, but slowly came around to the idea of making it a savanna instead. Partly, I just wanted to break up the terrain visually, but I also kind of felt like it made more sense. The rock pillars were a challenge, but one I was up to. Despite their rough appearances, the rock pillars were created by mathematically patterning large rock props rotated inwardly to form a circle. Similarly, the vegetation atop was placed in a pattern to create the most coverage, though certain parts, such as the rocks around the sides and the blooming flowers, were randomly placed individually. Hiding beneath the props, I purposely elevated the terrain for each pillar for two reasons. First, they would stop projectiles fired through the middle of the pillars, though not the ones on the corners or the edges. Second, anytime the flying birds I placed on the map would approach the pillars, they would automatically rise, keeping their flight paths less uniform. This similarly applies to certain flying units, such as snow speeders. I painted the terrain around the pillars impassable, forcing gunships such as the IDT to fly around them. After making the Dragon Star map in only 3 days, I had hope for similarly fast success for Blue Savannah. What I hadn't counted on, however, was how much grief the grass would give me. I applied thousands of grass and bush props multiple times, only to have to start over again and again, never managing to make something I liked. It was time-consuming, exhausting, and very frustrating. But this wasn't the first time something like this had happened. Parakith has a beautiful city I'm still really proud of, especially parts like this. But the mountains are another story. I spent months working on these mountains on and off, and frankly, they still look bad. But today, I can put together a good-looking mountain in minutes. I learned to do this through looking at real mountains, copying height maps, and of course, practice. So perhaps someday I'll figure out how to make a savanna map I'm happy with as well.